Hello everyone, this is Alex does Sudokus. It is Friday the 21st of August 2020. Happy Friday everyone. And I'm going to do a medium New York Times Sudoku using the Snyder notation method. So the first thing I always do is switch myself to candidate mode. And it basically means when I put any numbers in, it's going to put them as pencil marking. Sticking them in a corner. But if I want to do a normal number, all I have to do is hold down the shift key and then press the same number, and it'll put the number in as a big number basically. And the reason I use candidate mode first is because at the start of the puzzle you don't tend to be able to fill in as many. You're more likely to fill in pencil markings than I guess pen markings. So based on that, I just find it less work to immediately switch to candidate mode first. So as you saw, I've already filled in a 1 because these two ones sum with just a 1 in row number 8, and I've got another 1 seeing into one of the two cells. So now these two ones looks up and locks a pair of 1s in there. So these two 1s sees into these 4 cells, meaning I have to have a 1 in there, and these two 1s now point in that direction. In conjunction with this one, locks a pair of 1s in there. And I think that's all the interactions we have with the 1s. So let's move on to 2s. 2s immediately sees into these two cells, giving us a pair of 2s there. And with Snyder notation, we only notate pencil markings when we have 2 candidates within a cage of 9 cells. So I call this a cage. Any more than that, we'll leave it alone because we don't want to overwhelm ourselves with pencil marking all over the board basically, because at some point it just kind of becomes unhelpful and your board just ends up looking too busy. So 3s, since I've only got 1, 2, after the pencil marking there, I can tell there's no other 2s that I can pencil mark in or unlock. But I've got a pair of 3s here locking 4 cells within this cage, leaving me with a 3 here. And now these two 3s play nice together and give us another pair of 3s up there as pencil markings. And I think that's all the 3s that we can do. So let's look at 4s. These two 4s interact very nicely, giving us a pair of 4s there. And now this 4 acts as what's called a pointed pair. Since within this row, within this cage, the 4 has to be on row number 7. Therefore, there can't be any 4s in any other of the cages within the same row. So that's what's considered pointed pair, and it points in that direction in a straight line, basically saying there can't be any 4s in any of these cells at all. So using the pointed pair of 4s with another actual 4, we can deduce that the 4 has to be in the bottom left corner. And I don't think I can do anything else with the 4, so let's move on to 5s. So I've got these two 5s here, locking these 6 cells, so that means the 5 has to go in there. And what that does is, you can see the 3s and the 5s are both occupying the same 2 cells, and that basically restricts them into those 2 cells basically. 3s, if one of them is a 3, the other has to be a 5. And what that means is these 2 cells are essentially out of play. When you're scanning the grid, you can ignore these 2 cells now if you're looking for other digits, because they cannot go in there anymore. Because if you push another digit in there, that means we've got 2 numbers occupying a single cell, and that's impossible. So that's a useful bit of logic. And in terms of terminology, I would call this a 3-5 pair. Oops, I just added a pencil marking unintentionally. So yeah, let's have a look at other 5s. I've got another 2 5s here, locking these 5 cells, and that 5 looks into one of the 2 remaining cells, giving us another 5. And I've got a 5 here, seeing into this cell. I've got these two 5s seeing into those cells, so I've got another pair of 5s there. Can we do anything else with the 5s? I don't think we can, so let's move on to 6s. So this 6 locks these two cells, which means it creates another pair of 6s. And that is, again, a pointer pair of 6s pointing in that direction. So in conjunction with that 6, locks the remaining 6 in this cage on the top row. But since we've got 3 possible candidates, we can't see any more 6s with these cells. We're not going to annotate them just yet. And I think at a glance, that's all the 6s that we can do. Let's move on to 7s. I can immediately see this 7 basically closes the lid on this cage, forcing another 7 down here. And now these 2 7s also locks a 7, 7, oh, what's happened? Locks a 7 down here. I just pressed a weird key on my keyboard and it stopped me from being able to do anything else. So I think that's all I can do with the 7s. Let's move on to 8s. This 8 sees down to this cell, and I've only got 2 remaining cells, so let's use that. And that creates a pointed pair, locking these 3 cells, and with that 8, locks another pair of 8s down here. And they also act as pointed pairs, locking another pair of 8s down here. So that was quite useful. And I can't see any more interactions happening with the remaining 8s, so I'm going to move on to 9s now. 9, this 9 locks 3 of the cells, locking another 9 in here, and this 9 sees downwards, locking another 9 in there because of this 9 locking the row as well. So now we've got 2 9s pointing us in that direction, locking the 9s in there because of this 9 blocking that cell. So we've got ourselves another pair. This is a pair of 4s and 9s. So the 4s and 9s means these 2 cells are now out of play. So we've got 4 remaining cells within this cage. Let's move on briefly to see if we can establish anything else. We've got another pair of 9s here, looking in this direction, locking out those cells. Well, we've got another 9 here, which locks that cell as well. So that gives us one more 9. Can we do better than that? We've got another pair of 9s here, and a 9 over here, so 9s are locked in those cells. So 9, 9. I think that's all we can do with 9s. So we've filled in quite a few numbers now, but we've got a long way to go. We don't even look like we're halfway yet. But we've got some interesting things we can do now. Oh, something weird is going on. Oh, of course, when I fill in that 9, I've actually eliminated a 6, and I forgot to action that. So, since with Snyder notation, you annotate 2 cells at a time within a cage, that means when you erase one of the pencil marking, the remaining pencil mark must be correct. And that gives us, in this cage, 2 remaining cells, so only 2 numbers can be remaining within this cage, and they are 2s and 8s, and I can pencil mark them in, but actually I can see a 2 looking down this cell anyway, so that can't actually be a 2 anyway. So eliminating one pencil mark means the other must be a 2, and that erased the pencil marking for 8, which means that has to be an 8. So let's see what we can do now. Remember what we said about the pairs? The pairs of 3s and 5s means in this column, no other numbers can go in those 2 cells, so they're now out of play, which means we actually only have 1 free candidate left in this column, and it is a 4. So that's the power of having pairs, basically, and Snyder notation quite often allows you to see these kind of pairings and allow you to do interesting logics like that, basically. So even though we haven't actually established what those 2 cells are, by just having the pairs in there, we can lock another candidate in. So now we've got 2 candidates left in these 2 cells, and they are 2s and 8s. So we don't see any 8s in any of these columns, so we don't know where the 2 is or where the 8 is. Just actually, sorry, we do know where the 2 is. 2 is down there, so that actually resolves the 2 and the 8. So now we've got another pair of 8s looking up, and an 8 over here, so we actually know there's a pair of 8s locked in those cells. So before I move on, I wanted to look at this triple first, because by filling in these two cells, we're only left with 3 possible candidates. So they are, if you just count the numbers that we haven't got in this column, they are 3, 6 and 7. Well, if we look at this cell, we can see a 3 and a 6. So that cell cannot be a 3 or 6, and we need 3, 6 or 7 in this column. So that means that has to be a 7. And now if we look at the remaining 2 cells, we're looking for 3s and 6s, and we've got a 3 here, so that has to be a 6, and that has to be a 3. So we can kind of continue that logic. So for instance, we can look at this triple here. So we had pairs before, we now have triples, but we have 3 cells left within the cage. So these are 2s, 8s and 5s. So there has to be a 5 in here. In fact, we might as well pencil mark in the 5s, because we've got a 5 there, leaving us with 2 possibilities. So that creates a pointed pair of 5s, eliminating 5 from that cell. So that creates an interesting situation. Now, I'm going to pencil mark in the 2s briefly, but normally I don't do that, because I've just pencil marked in 3 candidates within the same cage. Although, since the purpose of Snyder notation is to reduce the number of pencil marking on the board, there's not a huge amount of harm to actually put it there. But basically, we now have a set of triples there, no other values can go in them, just like the pairs, but this time we have 3 numbers in 3 cells, so no numbers can go in there. We've got a pair of 4s and 9s there, so no other numbers can go in there. So those 5 cells are essentially out of play as well, leaving us with a single cell on this row. And if I'm not mistaken, the only cell that we can't see in this row at the moment is a 6. So we just resolve that cell to 6. And also, we've only got 1 5 candidate left because of the pointed pair of 5s early on. So we know that has to be a 5. And now that creates another pair of 2s and 8s. But this time, we can't actually resolve them, because we definitely can't see any 2s on the columns, so no 8s. So I'm glad to say I've correctly labelled a pair of 2s and 8s and keep them there, basically. So what else can we do? We've got another triple here on this column, not in the cage, but in the column. And the only cell, the only number that we haven't got is a 7. And that in turn means these 3 cells are now also out of play. These 2 cells are out of play. So that creates another triple for us, which we also already knew because of the column. So the only candidates left are 1, 4 and 6, if I'm not mistaken. I've got a 4 there, so those have to be 4s. But I don't know whether 1s or the 6s are, because they can be in all 3 cells. So for now, I'm going to leave it. What we're going to do is we're going to stop for a sec and just look at the grid and admire the fact that we've I think we've done about half of the board. But basically we've done the pencil marking in for all the bottom cells in the bottom cages without bombarding ourselves with a huge number of candidates, so we don't end up with like something crazy like this, and it actually becomes really hard to read. So let's see what we can do now. Well, we can just go around the board again with going from 1 to 9 and see if the changes we've made to the board has actually unlocked any new numbers for us. So, had a look at 1s, I can't see anything. What about 2s? 2s, I can't see anything. What about 3s? So I've got a pair of 3s over here because of these 2 3s and that 3. And I don't think I can do anything else with 3s. What about 4s? 4s. Can't do anything with 4s. Let's have a look at 5s. 5s. Nothing on 5s. 6s. Okay, so 6 is now locked in this cell because that 6 sees those 3 cells. So that's another number deduced. And that gives us another pair of 6s, which also allows us to pencil mark in the 6s over there. So let's carry on. Can we do any more with the 6s? No, we can't. So, well, looking at the 7s, I've got the same situation here, locking a pair of 6s and 7s in there. So that creates another pair, which means in this column, I've only got 2 cells left. And they are 2s and 5s, because I can already see the pencil marking of 2s and 5s there. And I've got 2 remaining cells. And assuming that the pencil marking is correct, the 2s and the 5s must fall within these 2 cells. And I can see a 5 over there. So that means the 5 can't go in there. The 5 has to go in here, and the 2 has to go in there. So that erases the 5 over there. So we've created another 2-8 pair now. So that's always interesting. Before we move on, I noticed that we've got another pair locked in this cage, and we've got another pair locked in this row. So let's have a quick look to see if we can actually resolve them. We're left with 4 and 8 in those 2 cells. We can't resolve that just yet. What about over here? We've got 2s and 4s. Again, we can't resolve them, so that's disappointing, but since these are 2s and 4s, well, let's pencil mark them in for now. These are 4s and 8s. 4s and 8s. That gives us another triple, and it may be worth seeing if we can resolve the triple as well. So we're missing 7. So let's pencil mark in the 7s. So it's 1, 3, and 7. Again, we can't resolve that just yet, so we just have to move on then. So I think we were looking at the 4s, weren't we? No. Oh, were we? I can't remember now. Let's have a look at the 6s. Yeah, I think we were looking at 6s, maybe 7s actually. Yeah, the last thing we did was we pencil marked in 7s over there. So what else can we do with 7s? Nothing else. So what about 8? 8. Nothing on 8s either. 9s. This is quite disappointing. So I can't do any more pencil markings in, continuing on the numbers going up to 9. But I can always do another cycle of 1s to 9s. So let's do another 1, 2. Because basically, as long as the board has changed by having solid numbers filled in, that means new candidates could potentially have unveiled themselves, basically. So 2s, 3s, 3, 3, 3, 3, 4s. It does look like we are stuck now by just looking at how the numbers interact with each other. I've got another pair of 5s over here because of this 5 and that 5. 5, 5, we already knew those are locked in. So 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 7s. I think I've chosen a difficult medium puzzle to start my new channel on, and I'm trying to do as much explaining as I can. So sorry about how long this is taking. So I've just gone through 1 to 9, and whilst I've put in pencil markings, I've not actually confirmed any numbers yet. That means the board in itself hasn't changed. So I think it's safe to look at alternative strategies now. And I think the problem we have at the moment is laterally, we haven't got many digits in these 3 cages, and that's what's causing us problems. So we need to somehow unlock some digits in here by attacking the weak areas and hopefully get ourselves some numbers to get us started. And I think that would create a chain reaction to unlock a lot of these pencil markings. So when I say weak area, I'm basically talking about an area on the grid that is has not many cells left. So an example would be these 3 cells here. I've only got 3 cells left in this column, so anything that's 2s and 3s I would consider quite weak. So let's see if we can figure out where the numbers go in these 3 cells. Well, I've got a pencil marking 1s and 3s in there, and just scanning up and down, I definitely haven't got 1s or 3s in this column, so I know those are the two of the 3 digits remaining, and I know the last one is a 2. I've got 2 over there, so I know it's Actually, I don't know why I clicked on that 2, but I know I'm missing a 2, basically. So what I would do is look at these 3 cells and see if we can actually see any of the numbers, 1, 2, and 3. Well, I can see a 2 in this cell, but in this cell I can also see a 2. So in the case of a triple, 2 of the 3 cells cannot be a 2. That basically locks a 2 in this cell. So imagine if I were to pencil mark in all these 3 cells, they would look like this. This would be 1 and 3, that would be 1 and 3, and I mean, I can pencil mark that in as 1, 2, and 3, but actually, since I've already got the 1 and 3 pair, it's safe to say that's the only cell left in play in this column, which is a 2. Another way of looking at it is we can pencil mark in the 1, 2, and 3 because we don't know what that number is. Sometimes you come across pencil markings like this, and that basically creates it's a triple, basically. It's basically mean these 3 numbers are locked in these 3 cells. Usually you have combination like this, which is unresolvable. You don't know where each of the numbers are, but when you go triple where 2 of them are forms a pair, then they're no longer a triple, and it pushes the remaining number in the 3rd cell. I don't know if I explained that very well, but it's always worth looking at the triples to see if you've actually got a pair within the triple. So what does unlocking that 2 do for us? What chain reaction is that going to do? Well, this 2, in conjunction with that 2, locks a pair of 2's up here. I've already got 2 in this column, so that means, and also I know that's a 6-7 pair, so it's out of play anyway. So I know that 2 has to go in there. Well, I've just eliminated a 5 pencil marking by doing that, which means the remaining 5 pencil marking has to be the 5. So that 5 unlocks another 5, pushes the 5 over there, which removes the pencil marking 3, so another 3 has been resolved. So that's what I mean by chain reactions, basically. Now, I didn't normally, like I said, I don't do pencil markings in on a column in another cage, in 2 separate cages, basically. So this briefly confused me for a second because I looked at a cell and I was like, hang on, why have I only got 1 and 3 in there? Where's the other 1 or 3? That's the reason that I don't do pencil marking in typically on a column basis. This one is fine because I've already got the 1s and the 3s within the cage itself, all pencil marked in. So ignoring that 3 now, this 3 looks over here, locks a pair of 3s over here because that cell is out of play. So that creates a pointed pair, which means 3s have to be in these 2 cells. I've got 3 down here, so that has to be the 3. So this 3 now looks down into that cell, eliminating that 3, which means the 3 has to go in that cell, which eliminates the 1 and 7. So that's another chain reaction that happened, and it does more things as well. So this is, well, actually, let's just look at these 2 1s. These 2 1s basically locks a 1 in that cell, so I'm going to do it that way. There is actually another logic that I could have used, but I think that's the more direct logic. Also, that was the only number left in this column anyway. So this one sees that pencil marking, pushes the 1 down there, and finally it pushes the 1 up here because these 3 cells are out of play. But in any case, I've got 1 over here anyway, so that's the last 1 on the board that's been deduced. So what can we do next? Surely we can do more things. Yes, we can. If we look at this cage, these 2 cells have to be a pair because these 2 cells are out of play. So they're actually 3s and 4s. So that 4 creates a pointed pair, eliminating another pencil marking of 4, pushing a 4 down here. So now we've only got 1 cell left in this column, and it is a 6. And that 6 looks over here, blocks that cell, this 6 blocks those 2 cells, which resolves the 6 over here. And that 6 looks back over here, eliminating the 6, resolving the 6-7 pair. And that 7 looks back over here, eliminates that pencil marking, but that doesn't resolve the cell just yet. But if we look further over here, it locks that cell, that 7 locks that cell, so that has to be the 7 as well, which means that 7 is now eliminated. So 7 has to be down here, 8 has to go there, 9 has to go here. So now we can pretty much just fill in the remaining numbers on the grid. And we know that's an 8 because this row is only missing an 8. And by filling in that 8, this cage now is only missing a 9. So 9 is resolved, and that 9 looks down here, resolves the 4 and 9 pair. And this 4 looks back up, resolves the 2 and the 4. And this 2 looks back down, resolves the 8 and the 2. So that's a good bit of chain reaction going on there. Over here we have a 2 that actually sees into this 2-8 pair, resolving them, and that 8 sees into the 4 and 8, and that 4 now sees into the 3 and 4. And that is our medium New York Times Sudoku today. I hope this slow and deliberate method is helpful for others who are starting on Sudokus. Please like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll be doing alternating plays on the medium Sudokus on a daily basis. So today I gave detailed explanation on every step of the way, and I'm hopefully going to kind of explain more basic logics for people starting on Sudokus. But every other day I'm going to challenge myself to do an entire medium puzzle without using any pencil markings at all, which will be tomorrow. But for now, hope you enjoyed it, and hope you learned something, and I'll see you tomorrow.